So here's a video on how to multiply decimals. And it's pretty much almost the same as multiplying regular numbers, but with an extra step at the end. So we see the decimals here, and if you notice, they are lined up. They don't need to be lined up though when you're multiplying. That only applies to addition, subtraction. That's when it's required. That's when it has to be lined up. But right now they are. After this, I'll show you an example where they're not lined up. So what you can do is just start multiplying like the regular numbers. We're going to worry about the decimal. We're going to worry about the decimals at the end. 4 times 8, that gives me 32. So you put 2 here, 3 here. We'll carry over the 3. Yes, it is 32, but you bring 3 over here. Now you're going to multiply 3 times 4. That gives us 12. But now you're going to add this 3. Don't forget about that. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus this 3, that gives me 15. So I'm going to put 15 right here. Always make sure your numbers are aligned as well. What I mean is lined up. So right now I'm a little bit off. So let me fix that. It's always important to be as neat as possible when you're multiplying to line up your numbers. Now, what I'm going to do next is go on to the next number. This part's going to be easy. You're going to multiply 0 times 8, and then after that, 0 times 3. But before we do that, you must always put a 0 when you're going from the 1s to the 10th place for place value. And also, any number you had used before, get rid of it. Why do we do that? Well, so you won't be confused and use it again accidentally. And now let's take care of the easy part. 0 times 8, of course, is 0. 0 times 3, of course, is 0. And we add it up. 2 plus 0 is 2. 5 plus 0 is 5. 1 plus 0 is 1. Now here's where the decimals come in. So what you're going to do next is you're going to go to each number, and you're going to start from the end. You're going to count how many times it took to get from the end of the number to the decimal. Had to jump over 2 numbers to get from the end to the decimal. Same thing for this one. 1, 2. What you're going to do now is count the total amount it took for both numbers. What I mean is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it took 4 jumps total for both numbers. So for your answer, you're going to have to jump 4 times from the end of the number. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where your decimal's at. But if you notice, there's a gap right here. If there's ever a gap, what you want to do is fill it in with a 0 and only 0. I call this eggs in your egg carton, because the shape of an egg is basically a 0. And the bottom part looks like the bottom part of an egg carton. And there it is. Here's my answer. 0.0152. Now if you want to erase this to make it work a little bit neater, go ahead and do so. And now it's easier on the eyes. And there's my final answer. And let's do another one while we're at it. All right. Here's another example, but this time the decimals are not lined up. All right, so here's a decimal going here. Here's the other decimal. Is that a problem? No, it's not. Not when you're multiplying. That's perfectly fine. That's only required when it has to be addition or subtraction with decimals, where the decimals have to be lined up. But since we're not adding or subtracting, since we're just multiplying, what we have right here is okay. So we can get started. If you want, you could line them up. All right. You could rearrange them too if you wanted to. But I think it's just easier if we just work with what we have. So, like I mentioned before, when it comes to multiplying decimals, you worry about the decimals at the end. First, let's focus on multiplying. 3 times 4 is 12, 2 here, and of course, remember, you put the 1 there. It does give us 12, but you carry over the 1 over here. Then you multiply 2 times 3, that gives me 6, plus this 1, that gives me 7. So place 7 over here. And just like I mentioned before, we're going to go on to the next number and multiply 1 by 4 and 1 by 2. But before we do any of that, what you got to do is make sure you get rid of any old numbers so you won't accidentally use them again. And also put a 0 for place value because you went from the 1s to the 10s place. And now let's multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. Now comes the addition part. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 4 is 11. Put 1 here, carry over the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. And now our final step. Now is where we worry about the decimals. So like I had mentioned before in the previous question, what you're going to do to see where the decimal goes is you go towards the end of the number and you count how many times to get from the end to the decimal by jumping from each number. 1, 2 times 4.24. Over here, just 1 time. That's a total of 3 jumps. So what we're going to do here is go to the end and jump 3 times. 1, 2, 3. We end up with 0.312. If you want to clean it up, that's how it looks like. And there's my answer. Again, let me show you how I got the decimal in that position. It took 2 times here, 1 time here. That's a total of 3. So then I went to my final number and I jumped 3 times, the same amount from the 2 numbers above, leaving me with 0.312.